Well, welcome everyone to our presentation today. Can everybody in the back hear me okay? The nice thing about a long room is hopefully my voice will just kind of bounce off the walls as we talk. But our first slide talks a little bit about what we're going to do here, our welcome to you, and then our introduction. So as he mentioned, I'm the Chief of Police in North Hudson. I've been employed by the North Hudson Police Department for 25 years. The last 19 and a half as the chief there. Great community to work and live in, but we also have our fair share of crime, so I've got some job security. We're going to talk a little bit about that today and the reasons why some of people like you are become victims and how we can help you to work through that. So, and Rich.
Thank you, Mark. My name is Rich Stuart. I'm with First State Bank and Trust in Hudson. We have right on Carmichael and Vine. We're also in Bayport, and that's where I'm normally housed, along with Tammy. I've been with the bank coming on 33 years. So I started in high school, and it's been great. Work in the operations department. I have seen every type of scam you could imagine, and every day there's new ones that come out, and it keeps us on our toes. It's a interesting topic of trying to help everyone keep their cash and not give it to the scammers, because we see it all the time. It's heartbreaking. And we love it when we have a victory where we can keep somebody with their money. So I'd like to also introduce Tammy Livingston. She has been with the bank 33 years. She'll always remind me that she started before myself. We worked together in operations, and she is a fraud guru, so she really helped me come up with our little slides today. And in the back, Erin Crowder. She is our risk management Vice President. And we, in the last few, this year, or the end of last year, we started a fraud group at the bank because it's so prevalent now. So we get together monthly just talking about how can we find different kind of fraud, what classes are there to give us, because it's becoming quite it's every day there's something new. So we appreciate you stopping here today. This is a great crowd. We're really excited to present. So,
excellent.
Thank you.
So we've got about an hour and a half worth of information. We're planning at about 40 minutes or so to take a 10-minute break so you can get up, stretch, get some refreshments that were provided. And then one of the biggest things for us today for expectations is that we're not here to scare you. We're here to educate you. Some of the stories we might tell might sound a little scary because people are losing their whole life savings, but it's to educate you so that you can educate your friends, your family, and yourselves on how to make sure that you don't become one of those victims. Any questions before we get started? I'll point out, I guess I forgot to mention this, back in 2003, I started doing elder scam or senior safety seminars with my former chief when I was on patrol. And right in the middle here is my mom. She wasn't able to make it today, but she's on part of the Hudson Senior Center. The only thing that's changed about her is her hair color. You'll notice mine, I have all kinds of hair and it's dark, so some things don't change and some things do. So. Well, let's get started. One of the things I want to give a reference to is credit and a special thank you to Jeff Kirsten. He's with the Bureau of Consumer Protection in the state of Wisconsin. He's the one that put together a majority of the slideshow, and I asked for his permission to use it. I went to one of his classes. I thought all the information was in a good spot. The only things that I've updated are some of the year statistics. So I think in 2021 was when I first saw him. I'll have 2024 statistics in the slideshow, and then also Rich and his group added a couple of slides as well. But thank you to him for providing this information and allowing me to use it. All right, we're going to do an informal, you don't have to participate if you want to, but I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you meet one of these criteria. Is there anyone here have a cell phone, either the flip phone version, iPhone, Android? I see a few hands going up. Okay, a majority of the hands going up. How many of you have a computer, either at home, a laptop, or those desktop versions? All right, I see a couple double ups here. How many of you have an email address? All right, everybody's still in the 20th century with that. Mailing address, either a P.O. box or a physical residence. Lots of hands, we're getting good exercise already, that's great. And how many of you have a front door? Okay, a couple don't, I understand. Sometimes we live in different places and that's okay too. So, if you meet any of these criteria, if you said yes to any of them, you're a potential victim of a scam. They use all these different ways to try to get in touch with you and to bring that scam to you and to your front door. I won't bore you with too many statistics, but just some things to think about. These are 2024 Federal Trade Commission statistics. 6.5 million reports of these three categories: credit bureau and information furnishers, identity theft, and imposter scams. And we'll go a little bit deeper into what each of those mean. But we're talking about $12.8 billion in total loss. Billion. They are reporting, the statistics show younger people reported losing money to fraud more often than older people. About 20 to 29, 44%, and then 24% of people aged 70 to 79. But the younger people tend to lose less money when they are victims of a scam. They're not willing to risk as much, and so they don't necessarily, and you all obviously are trying to keep your money, but hey, why not try to double it if they're offering that as an option for you? So that 70 to 79 age group, we're saying on average they were losing about $1,000 for every scam that they, or fraud that they participated in. Imposter scams, we'll talk again more about what that means. About 1 in 5 people have lost money, 2.986 billion as a B, reported in 2024. And it said that on average, $800 was what was lost by the people that were victimized. Did a little research, found out that basically, you think to yourself, why are older people more susceptible to scams? There is one research out of the UCLA Social Neuroscience Lab that basically talks about, and I'll paraphrase this paragraph to say, you're too trustworthy. You grew up in a world that was okay to trust people, and most of the time you were face to face with people, and so you could tell, you had that gut feeling on whether or not they were trying to take advantage of you, where now if it's over the phone, if it's online, or you're clicking on a link in your phone, you don't have that face to face, so it's harder to know, is this a real person, are they trustworthy? And so that's what they're seeing in some of the research that they found. Payment methods. We'll talk a little bit about, these are the three kind of ways that people typically are defrauded. Gift cards. The scammer will ask you to go out and buy a gift card and then give you the number, or give them the number. Just a reminder here, gift cards are for gifts. They're not for paying your bills. Bank wire transfers is another way that we see people lose their money. And nowadays, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is one of the examples of those, and that's how people can lose their money.
And the other way that we find is with debit card fraud. And so how many people here probably had their debit card, credit card compromised? And you'll probably see hands raised up. It's really prevalent. And they are saying that 92% of the fraud that occurs, the victims all have their card still in their possession. So they don't even need your card. They don't need to steal your card from you. They can skim it. They can take it and use the information and go online. But the nice thing is that you're protected as a consumer with the debit card. If you did not make that purchase, then not liable for that. So just make sure, that's always make sure and watch your statements and look at that. Yes?
A question. Debit cards, I thought, weren't quite as protected as the charge card.
If you didn't make the purchase, if you made a purchase, then there's some protections that aren't protected. But if it's a fraudulent transaction, then you're not, there's the liability is just back.
Yeah, and in a lot of those situations where you still have the card in hand, it's because there was a data breach somewhere and there was a database of some sort that they hacked into. So you may never have had been in Florida or Montana or wherever the actual purchase took place, but the person that is utilizing your number or your information, that's where they were. So and very often we're going to get called and people will say, it never left my hand. I didn't give it to anybody. It's not left my hand. And they have ways to get around that. I'm not going to get too much into the weeds on cryptocurrency because I can honestly tell you that it's very difficult to understand. I've been to several classes about it, but one of the basic things is it's a computer-based digital currency. They call it a blockchain because basically it flows through and there's records of everything that occurred, but not necessarily who the person is that ends up receiving the money. Crypto scams are available through a crypto exchange such as a Coinbase or Binance. So basically that's, you will pay a company that will transfer your money, your dollar bill, into a cryptocurrency or into a series of digital numbers. And then once cryptocurrency transfers are confirmed on the blockchain, they're permanent. there's no getting that money back, which is obviously why scammers are very interested in using that as an option for you. I can give you an example. Just the other day, it was 2 weeks ago now, I got called to the BP gas station in North Hudson by the clerks who said there's a gentleman here that's got $25,000 in $100 bills, and he's feeding them into a Bitcoin ATM. So basically, the ATM, the physical box, is taking his $100 bills and turning it into cryptocurrency as Bitcoin. And then he can send that Bitcoin to wherever it's asking him to send it. I went up and chatted with the gentleman. He assured me that it was not a scam, that it was a legitimate, he was buying Bitcoin because he wanted to buy it. The people at the store said he's been on the phone with somebody while he's doing all of this, and I obviously don't have a victim unless he's willing to chat with me about what's going on. And so I went and grabbed a candy bar to pay for it and talked to the people, and as I was there, he answered his phone. He said, "I can't talk, the cops are here." And he hung up the phone. I can't force him to tell me what's going on, but he may have just been out $25,000. Of course, I don't know the outcome. He was not a resident of North Hudson, so it was not reported to me. I did forward on to the Adult Protection for St. Croix County his name and information just so they could do some follow-up and try to help out, but it's happening all over the place, and it's literally, they can say to you, go get cash out of your bank, go to the nearest Bitcoin ATM, and you can Google where those all are, and we happen to have one in North Hudson. So I don't know if I think this might be the slide you're going to talk a little bit about that.
And the nice thing, Stillwater, if you've read in the news, was able to, the police chief over there said he was tired of having to do exactly what Mark did, is go watch people put money in the machine. So Stillwater was able to pass an ordinance to get rid of all of the Bitcoin machines in Stillwater. Now they've been challenged with this, but other cities are starting to inquire, how did they do it? Because it's become a nationwide scam where people are putting their money in, and it's a very sad thing so Stillwater is kind of they're the front runners for abolishing those machines. So it's good to see, because I don't know many people that actually run to the machines and buy Bitcoin.
And not usually in that volume.
Exactly,
for sure.
and putting all that money in.
One of the things we don't talk about for Bitcoin is the people that have their money through cryptocurrency, this will be your bank. In a lot of cases, there's other options, but basically all the data is on a thumb drive that you would plug into your computer. The issue is, if I run this through the wash, I drop it somewhere, all my money is lost. There's no way to get it back. And so you have to be a little careful about purchasing Bitcoin and putting it on something that's mobile and can be moved around. So,
you had a question?
How are they getting to you? Where are they saying or sending to you to get you to do this?
Typically, it's going to be a phone call, either a cold call, or it might be a text message that they send, and it says, please call us regarding this information. And it's usually that they're asking you to pay for either to get someone out of custody, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Maybe they call and say your grandson's in custody, or I've got, you owe the IRS this much money, or you forgot to pay your interest on something. And so they're just giving you some reason to give this money to try to either release funds. A lot of times they'll say, okay, you won a car, but you have to pay the taxes on it. So please go to the Bitcoin ATM, funnel in your $6,000, $10,000, and your car will be there tomorrow. Some of those types of scams and cons.
And another one is a bank where they're saying there's insider fraud at the bank. Your account's been compromised. Please, we're going to set up a sting to catch the bad banker, and we'll go get money out. We open this new account for you at this Bitcoin machine and run that through. And that's been prevalent. And it's just, they're so smooth. That's the problem.
The banks, and is there any red flags that the teller or whatever, you draw out 10 or 25,000 in cash?
We'll talk about that. We've got that sheet that you have. We'll talk about that a little later. But
definitely coming up. All right, so not only cryptocurrency. So some of the statistics that are shown here, they've got all the different kinds, but the highest number of reports is imposter scams. So that's what we'll be talking more about on what that looks like. Online shopping or negative reviews, business, internet services, prizes, sweepstakes. We talked a little bit about that. Telephone, mobile services, healthcare, travel, mortgage, and those are some of the categories of the frauds that they're seeing. The trends for phones, I'm sure some of you have seen on your phone Scam Likely. That's not a person. It's not Mr. Likely calling you. It's because your phone company has determined, and some of the providers have determined that that phone number is most often related to some sort of scam, and it's not a reliable source. And so you can look at caller ID. Can you trust your caller ID? Well, unfortunately, not really anymore, because there is something called spoofing that they can do on an app, and they can basically make up whatever number. We've had several calls of people saying, I just got a call, it showed the North Hudson Police Department, the person identified them as a North Hudson officer, and they had this information, they gave a badge number, these types of things, and they were asking for some of my personal information. Obviously, if you have not had contact with an officer, that's not something we're going to do over the phone. We may ask you some information, but we're never going to ask you for your bank account, your social security number, those types of things. But they could spoof that phone number, so you can't necessarily trust the caller ID. Robocalls, a lot of times it's going to be, you're going to hear kind of that automated voice or recorded voice, and it's going to say, press 1 to do this. Well, that's going to get you through to probably a live person, probably in a foreign country that's sitting around a room as big as this, as many as you, and they're all talking to different people. Because if you can get $100, $200 from 43 people, that tends to add up, and that's on a daily, hourly, minute-by-minute basis. The do not call list, a lot of you will see, you probably have signed up for it in the past. The do not call, you don't want people calling you to ask you for services and those types of things. These people, they don't worry about the do not call list. They're criminals, and so they don't abide by the law when it comes to that. The can you hear me portion, there are some of them that you answer, they say hello, and then all of a sudden they'll say, well, can you hear me? And you say yes. Well, they then will record that yes and can utilize it to try to mock your voice for some other parts of their scam. And so you have to be careful. And I know it sounds scary. That's what I mentioned. Just saying yes can sound scary, but we're allowing you to make sure you keep talking. This one's got you on it.
Yeah, I do. Phone spoofing. Banks are running into this where the fraudsters are using the number for the bank. So what might come through, you might have your bank phone number in, and all of a sudden it'll say, First State Bank and Trust, or your bank that you're calling from, or that they're calling from. And we ran into this during the early, I think it was January, February, where somebody was calling some of our clients saying and it said First State Bank and Trust. Of course, our clients trusted it, and there was Morgan, who we don't even have a Morgan in our bank. And they were able to talk them into, they knew our beginning of our credit card number, so they were able the debit card number, able to ask them to just tell me the number on the card, and somehow got the number and were able to add that card to a mobile phone wallet and take cash out within minutes. That's how fast it went. And of course they do it on a Friday, so if you ever get a Friday call, that's when it's most likely to happen. And it's one of those, we came in on Monday and we had all these fraud items, and so we had to kind of shape how people can use their debit card with the mobile phone app, because it was so prevalent and so fast. And that's why, like every day you come in on a Monday, there's something new.
For sure. So that's a scam that related to phone calls. Text or email. So again, on that computer that you all, or many of you had, on the phone that you had, you might get a text. And you don't know who it's from, and it maybe says, what's the one I've been getting over the last week? Your subscription is ready to this. Just click this link and we'll finalize all the information. Or your app has been downloaded, click this link to get it started. And so you're gonna see a lot of things, congratulations Ryan, you came third this week in Amazon AirPod raffle. Click the link to set delivery. And then once you click that link, it's gonna ask you for information, and you're gonna voluntarily give that information if you believe this is true, and then they're gonna take that information and they're gonna utilize it against you. Or they might ask you for your bank information so they can give you your prize and be able to we're gonna deposit it right into your bank account, don't worry about that, and they start to ask a lot of questions. So there's links that are in there. Typically it's gonna be hidden sender. It's not gonna have a full name. It may not even have a name. It might be a company or business, and so they're not gonna show you who they are. When it comes to email addresses, and I don't think I have a slide on this necessarily, but at the top of the email that is the address of who it's from. If you hover over that, it might say Mark at North Hudson Police Department. If you hover over it, it might say jqpr352@gmail.com. So if you hover, it can kind of help you to determine if it's actually that person sending you the email. It'll help them to hack accounts. And then again, I talked about the fact that they can fake phone numbers through some of the spoofing apps that they have. And so it might look like a friend of yours that's sending you this. It's the content that you really want to look at and think to yourself, would Bonnie actually send me this information and this link? Does she know how to put a link together? No offense to my mom, she probably could not do that. But just think about it, does it fit with what their abilities might be? She's not here, so I can pick on her a little bit. Social media. So a lot of times now when you're on maybe Facebook or you're on a gaming site, they'll have ads that kind of pop up all over the place. They will then mimic those when they send you an email. Hey friends, I got a $1,000 gift card from Walmart as a Christmas gift, get it right away. And then you click on this link and you think you're gonna get the same value that they did. They can do a good job. I mean, I can go on any website in seconds. I can do a snippet of their image or their Walmart insignia, or name your favorite place to go, Applebee's or whatever it may be, and I can put it into an email and I can write all around it and make it look pretty nice looking. And they have, unfortunately, as we talk about this, the scammers, had they put their skills to real life, could be billionaires just because they have so many skills. It's unfortunate that they make their billions off of victims and people that are clicking on their links and those kind of things. So social media, you'll see a lot of those types of scams. So the imposter scams, as I mentioned, 2024, 265,000 reports throughout the country. The top government imposter scams are the Social Security Administration, Health and Human Services or Medicare, the Postal Service, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and tolls imposters. So Social Security, you may hear about people saying, we need you to click on this link in order to confirm your Social Security is coming through to get that information. So a lot of government ones, because why? And maybe not so much, for anymore, but a lot of times the government was trusted. And so you would just, if it was from a government agency, you just admitted that it was okay to deal with that. And so nowadays they know that that's something that we feel secure about. So now they're sending out things that are related to IRS and Social Security, the Postal Service, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of those other imposter scams. So Social Security one, this calls from the Department of Social Security Administration. The reason you have blank call from our department is to inform you that we just suspended your Social Security number because we found some suspicious activity. So if you want to know about this case, just press 1, thank you. So that's the phone call that they receive. So those of you that have Social Security coming in, that's not something you want to stop, and so you press 1, and then you're into the process of having those conversations with whoever's on the other end of the line. The IRS ones we hear a lot about, you have unpaid taxes. And so the IRS is calling you because they want to get those unpaid taxes immediately so that you don't have any problems. They threaten arrest. And then they demand that immediate payment. So you'll notice in a lot of these scams that they're going to demand you to do something right away. You can't wait, you've got to do it now. Matter of fact, keep me on the phone while you go into Walmart. Don't tell anybody that you're talking to me. Buy a couple of $100 gift cards and then read me the number once you purchase those. But if somebody approaches you, tell them that you're buying this card for your grandson or for your daughter's upcoming birthday, a wedding coming up, those types of things. And so they keep you on the phone because they want to keep that anxiety and that stress on you so that hopefully you're not going to think this through as you're making those decisions to make those purchases. You get out to your car then and they said, okay, great, we can get this taken care of for you. Just give us the number, scratch the number off the back of the gift card, give us that number, and literally at the moment you tell them the very last number, that money is gone. They've already spent it, or they're buying things as they're typing in the number. So, and you can't go back to Walmart and say, I don't have this money anymore, because once they sell that gift card, they're not responsible for it if there's no funds left on that card. They might ask you to verify your account information. That's another way to help them make sure that they have the right person, that things are going to move forward. If they ask you to verify the whole thing, be cautious. If they say, well, what are the last 4 numbers? A lot of times, banks or people might ask for your last 4 numbers of your Social Security card, Social Security number, just to verify it's you. That's not as big of a deal as long as you were the one that called them. But if they call you, there's no reason that they need to verify that. They should have that information. Demand payment, often by unusual methods. We talked already about the prepaid debit card, a gift card, or that cryptocurrency. And so they can utilize that to get your money from you very quickly. And they may request your bank information. I don't know if there's any other, what exactly would they need from the bank in order to access your account?
They just need your routing number and your account number, and they could send through a debit. They could, pay a bill. So that's why we always recommend, make sure you look at your statements all the time. Check your online banking, because if you see something that's not yours, call the bank right away, because we have methods to, there's time frames, but if you catch it right away, we can return those fraudulent debits that they were to come out of your account. So if they got your bank account information, we don't see that as prevalent as much because they know the rules too, the scammers. They're really good at what they do. That's why they always go after the debit card. They want you to come get your cash. And
there's no real digital footprint when it comes to them reading off a gift card. It's a phone conversation. Most probably you aren't recording it, where if they do a bank transfer, there's usually going to be some sort of digital footprint that we can go back to an IP address and try to track that kind of stuff down. But when it's just over the phone, there's no real evidence per se of that.
And they might get on your internet banking too. That's another one where they can get on your internet banking. And one scam we know is that they'll do a transfer from your savings to checking, and they'll try to get you to go, oh, we made a mistake. Now go get that cash out of your account and take it. Go get the cash from the bank and go to the crypto machine, or we'll find a way to get the money to us by gift card. And so they're really tricky. They're very...
Absolutely. So I have a video. Unfortunately, my system is not letting me play it. It's just a couple minutes, and basically it's just about this gentleman, how he was scammed into going to Walmart and buying some cards, reading them then, and I think he lost in the neighborhood of $12,000 just because they kept saying to him, well, that number didn't work. You're going to need to go in and buy 2 more because for some reason that number you gave us isn't working. And he went in so many times to purchase more and more cards, read them the number. Of course, it was working on their end, but they needed him to get more money to send to them. So. And then also the other part of tech support, and I can't remember if I have a file. Yeah, here. So Microsoft, Apple, Google, usually you'll get a call, or I've gotten several of these. Computer is infected with a virus. So you could get them as a pop-up on your screen, and it's asking you to call a certain number, and then you call that number and they say, you know what, we can help you. It's going to cost you $200. You pay it over the phone here, and then just allow us to log on to your system. We'll get that corrected for you. Well, while you're talking, or while they're logging onto your system, onto your computer, not physically, let me rephrase, remotely onto your computer, they're gathering all kinds of information in the background, or they could be placing a file onto the computer so that every time you go on to your bank account and you type in your username and password, it's collecting all that data and sending it right back to the scammer. I had a gentleman in North Hudson that had this happen to him. He ended up providing them with information. A month later, they called him back and said, we see that there's another glitch, and they charged him at $500 this time, got a lot of information, and then ended up transferring money from his money market accounts into an alternate account, all because it was from his computer, so it looked legitimate to the company. And then, of course, it's difficult to come back and say, yeah, I didn't do that, when it shows all of your computer typing to do all that information. So luckily, he took the computer itself over to a computer service. They washed the computer off. They still had, the bad guys still had his phone number, so they washed the computer, and 2 days later, the gentleman, shouldn't call him a gentleman, the criminal called him back and said, we seem to have lost connection with your computer. Could we get back on? And luckily, the gentleman knew that this was a scam and that he was being defrauded, and so he didn't allow them access back again. But they're going to be pretty persistent, and especially when they have somebody that started to give a little, they're going to try to get a lot. And it might be over a long time period. Most of the time, they're going to want to get it done quickly, but there are times where they just make it go on and kind of build that relationship, quote unquote. So the remote access, they send you the link to click. They install that malware, is what they call it, or ransomware. They can offer the fake antivirus coverage to protect you. Like I said, that $500 a year. You know what? You had that issue before. It seems like it's a problem. Let's get you into a subscription where you're going to pay us $500 a year in order to protect your computer. And we'll put this file on there. Oh, you see that little blue thing that just popped up? That's us protecting your computer, when in fact it's them doing all kinds of bad stuff. All right, the romance relationship sweetheart scams. I have way too many stories about this in the village of North Hudson for people, but it's you kind of pick the ones that are the worst. But let's talk about how we get there. We meet online, either through social media or dating sites. You start a conversation. It could actually be a text message like, "Hi, hope everything's okay with you. Who's this? Oh, it's Daryl. oh, I met you at such and such a location, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't remember Daryl, or I don't remember Susie, but you start a conversation, and all of a sudden they know some things about you, and they provide you with information, and kind of, it's nice to talk to somebody. Maybe you sit at home a lot and you don't really have many social outings, and all of a sudden this becomes somebody that you're confiding in, you're telling information to. They're not providing you with much, but there's some back and forth. So you meet online. Oftentimes they'll profess their love to you early in the relationship, like several text messages in or several phone calls in. It's, you know what, you are my person. I absolutely love you, and we're gonna make a life together. They refuse to meet face to face. Typically it's, I'm in, you name the foreign country, I'm in Sweden, and I just, I really want to get to America someday to be able to meet you. Let's figure something out, but it's difficult. I don't make a lot of money, and so I can't travel overseas. Can you send me some money and I can maybe buy a plane ticket, and then that starts the conversation. Or somebody that's serving overseas, because of course we want to trust our military, and so maybe it's somebody has similar interests and they're serving overseas, and they say, I'm in the military, I'm stationed over here, I can't get back to meet you, but you know what, they don't pay us a lot in the military, so is there any way you could send me $100, $250, $1,000? Or you know what, I'll be able to get out in a month, let's get some travel plans made. And then there's oftentimes once those travel plans are made, I'm coming next Tuesday. I'm going to be showing up next Tuesday. I can't wait to see you. Can't wait to finally put a face to a name. They encounter some sort of major problem. They need that money. They have a family emergency. They're not going to be able to travel, but now they need more funds. And people will continually just send money. And again, it's usually not huge amounts. It's small amounts over a long period of time, just to keep that relationship going and to feel trusted. Got an example?
I do. Just a few. Banks and credit unions, we're seeing the romance scams happening a lot. And are they easy to find? No. But a few that have happened, it's with the sweetheart that they get them to trust so much that they fall in love and they get on their internet banking. And it's another one where they let them on the internet banking and they'll start depositing checks take the phone out and take a picture of the check, and it's fraudulent checks. Well, they'll say, oh, the money's in your account, and go ahead and take that money out and go buy my ticket for that. And by the time you go buy the ticket, the money's comes back as a fraudulent check, and the money's gone. You've already sent them the gift card, you've sent them something, and this happens. They can set up another bank. We've seen other banks and us, we've seen where they'll set up an external account at another bank where it's fraudulently, they've taken over that account too. So these fraudsters keep going from bank to bank to bank, and they'll send money to the account, and this happens really quickly, and you've got the money in your account, that now go and buy my ticket, go do something else. And they're hard to spot. We, once in a while we get lucky where we'll see this happen, catch it, and we can stop the fraud from occurring, but it takes a few to notice and to see right away. And then they're also going on emotion too, because they want, I've seen where they want to wire money because they have a huge gold payout. And so the person will, for a chance at some of that gold, send their money out. Well, luckily we stopped the one, and it took, saved the person money, but it was a lot of convincing and a lot of trying to make them believe their bank. I mean, we're not going to lie to you, but the scammers are that good. Or else, and then I think they came back and said, oh, we have a card now. We found your dream car. We'll take care of everything. You send us the money, or we'll send it to a company, and the companies the scammers run. So these are very prevalent. The romance scams happen all the time, and it's seniors, it's young people, it's just, it continues to go. And the bad part is the scammers are getting better. They're starting to use AI, and that's and used to be you could point out bad misspelled words, everything. Not anymore. Everything's perfect. So.
And I think gold seems to be one of the major issues that people use when they're trying to establish that relationship, and then they offer that well, I'll help you. I know that you like to invest. I'll help you with an investment. We've got this company that you can double your money in an hour. And so you send me $10,000, you're gonna have $20,000, and now we're gonna set you up on an app on your phone. You can watch the money change. And so I had a victim in North Hudson who did a wire transfer to Hong Kong and a wire transfer to Singapore to start this investment. Could see on his app that money arrived on the app, and then started to see that it was multiplying. And so he worked with the person, his contact, who sent pictures of herself. She was a very attractive, late 20s woman, at least that's what she was telling him. Wasn't really romantic in nature. There was nothing lewd or wasn't nudes or anything like that. It was just her in her apartment, and this is where I live, and here's the food that I eat, and just building a relationship. The bank that he was working with said, we will no longer transfer money for you because via the bank transfers or the wires, because we believe that you were being defrauded. And so he said, okay, and he talked to the woman, and she said, here's what we're gonna do. We know banks are really finicky. Pull out cash, bring it to your residence, and we'll send a courier to pick it up. So he, the very first time, pulled out $90,000 in cash. And he took a picture of it and sent it to the person to say, it's ready. A gentleman in a black car pulled up in front of his house, and when he walked up, he was dressed nicely in a suit, walked up, handed him a $1 bill. And the instructions were, take a picture of the $1 bill from the courier, text it to me, I will confirm that that is the right serial number on the bill, and then I'll give you the thumbs up that it's okay to release the money to that courier. Everything worked out well. The courier went out the door. 6 hours later, it showed $90,000 more on his app. So again, he's believing that these things are occurring because the money is showing up where it should be. That happened twice. He did $90,000 in cash to a courier, and the last time was $45,000 in cash. He is now up to $348,000 that he has now given over to these scammers. When he asked, his money had tripled. It was up to 1 million on the app. When he asked them, how do I withdraw this money? They said, well, there's some complications. You have to pay taxes on it. The taxes have to be paid right away. The taxes on $1 million is $30,000. You need to send that to us, and then we'll release it. And so they come up with ways to just keep you going and try to, until he finally, and I can tell you, so one of the issues that sometimes we have are that people think it's only, unintelligent people that are victims of scams. I can tell you this gentleman was extremely intelligent. He was extremely successful in business, and he was trying to create more investments for himself. So it's any one of you could be the victim of a scam. It's just a matter they hit the right note that gets you kind of going. In the back.
Is there any way that you prosecuted that person that was stealing the money? Or was that not possible?
It was all through the app, and so there was no way to determine who this person was. I did, the last courier was actually within a 30-day time frame when he finally called in to report it, because of course he's embarrassed. He has just lost his family and his children that he may have given that money to. He was very embarrassed when he came to me, but he finally just said, I really think this is a scam. We talked it through. It was within 30 days. We were able to locate a license plate. That license plate was related to a rental company, but because the rental had occurred more than 30 days away, the documentation or the information wasn't available to us at that time, so we weren't even able to figure out who the courier was to try to work that back. So, and the app itself was reported to several federal agencies as being fraudulent, but they just kept opening it under a new name, or they would change one small thing, and so they could continue it going. And it had no real connection to the real world, back wherever. She reportedly was out of New York, but they had no connection with that. So that's why a lot of times these scammers, either they're overseas or we have a very difficult time tracking down who they are, because they're smart enough to use multiple lanes of traffic to be able to get to where they're going. But
The one thing, if you're coming in to take cash out, a little bit to yours, which we'll also get to later, but if the bank is asking you questions, because we've seen it enough, we know the red flags, we know the signs, it's imperative that you are honest with us and tell us what's really going on. Like he said, most of the time you're embarrassed, or the criminals are telling you what to say. Tell them that you're putting new carpet in your house. That's why you need the $25,000. But if they're telling you to say that, you should know it's a scam. But you have to be honest with us so that we can help you protect your money.
And that's been the nice thing over the last two presentations that I've done on this topic is we've had to have a bank representative because they see it usually before it's happening or before it happened or as it's happening. We're always called in after the fact. We're the ones that are trying to figure out things that after you've already lost your money. So it's nice to have that perspective to say we have some things in place that can hopefully protect you, but you have to help protect yourself at the same time. That's why we try to educate you on these things. All right, last thing, and then we'll take a quick break. You'll see out there's a lottery contest or sweepstakes. They say we've got a film crew coming your way. They're going to have this giant check and brand new car arriving tomorrow. They were going to request payment prior to the prize because you know what, there are shipping costs and you're responsible as the person that won this prize to pay for those. There are taxes on this prize, and so we want to get that up front so you don't have to worry about the IRS in the future. Some processing fees. And then oftentimes you'll see that it's a foreign lottery. I'm from Zimbabwe and you've won $100 million. All you need to do is send this information. There are some issues if you're playing foreign lotteries where it's illegal, but just some things to think about. That if it's too good to be true, it is. And a matter of fact, again, in North Hudson, and the reason I keep saying this is because it's not in New York and California these things are happening. They're happening here in our town. We have victims in our own communities. And I remember a woman calling me and saying, I'm a little nervous. They're bringing this car and all these people. I'd like to have some security there. Could you have an officer stand by while everything is going down? Because I really want to make sure that it's safe. I don't know these people. And unfortunately, we said, we really think it's a scam. We'll be there. And so, at 1 o'clock on whatever day they had picked, we were there standing by with this person. And unfortunately, after an hour said, I don't think they're coming. I think that you've been swindled out of money and then we'll work with you on the case. So, all right, why don't we take a 10-minute break, get up and grab yourself, get a stretch, there's some goodies over there, and then we'll jump back in. All right, so we left off a little bit with some of the lottery contests and sweepstakes scams. So the next one, again, my video doesn't work, but what it would have depicted is what we're calling the grandparent scam. It's a gentleman sitting home on an afternoon or an evening, and a person that's sitting in a call center with a headphone on is saying, "Hi, I'm Johnny, your grandson," and he goes through the whole perspective. So it's a great little kind of animated video, but basically it depicts what we're going to be talking about. These calls might come to you at 2 o'clock in the morning. If you have a home phone, if you have a cell phone that you leave on and ring, you're going to be groggy, you're not really going to be focused, and they're going to say, "Hi, this is your grandchild. I've been arrested or I've been involved in a crash." That crash will often involve a broken nose. Why do you think the broken nose might be important? Because they don't sound like themselves. And so it's not going to sound like grandson Johnny. It's going to sound muffled or something else. Or it might be somebody else on the line saying, "I'm here with your grandson. He's been so injured he can't speak, but he gave me his cell phone and I'm calling you from the number, or I'm calling the number that he told me was his grandparent, and I need some help from you. I need you to send me some money." Again, they might trick you into saying a name. They might say, "Hi, this is your grandson," and you say, "Hi, Johnny." Well, now they know your grandson's name. So just be a little bit careful. Again, you're groggy, you're not sure. You might say, "Well, which grandson?" "Oh, it's the grandson that lives farther away." "Oh, Scotty?" "Yeah, Scotty, this is Scotty." So they're just getting information from you that they then turn around and make you feel like, okay, it is that particular grandchild. They might give you some trip details because, again, unfortunately, some people put on social media, "I'm going to Colorado this week," or "I'm in Colorado, here's all the beautiful pictures," and it's that day. So they may know by looking at information that your grandson's in Colorado, and so now you're saying, okay, that's legitimate. They might say, "Shh, don't tell my mom and dad," maybe because he was drinking and driving and that's why the crash occurred. So they're gonna make it, just please don't tell them. I'll tell them when I get home, but I'm a little worried, or maybe that person that's helping them might say that. They might impersonate a law enforcement officer or a lawyer. So they may say, "Hi, this is Deputy so-and-so from the Colorado Police Department. Your son or grandson was involved in a crash involving a drunk driving arrest. He's now been placed in custody and you need to send $20,000 in bond money in order for him to get out of jail or to get out of the hospital because he's going to be held there until such time that we get the money." Or it might be their lawyer. "Hi, I'm the defense attorney for so-and-so, Scotty, Tommy, whoever it may be, and in order to get them out of custody, you're going to need to send $25,000 in bail money in order to get him out here in Colorado." This literally happened 3 weeks ago in the village of North Hudson. A woman got a call from a defense attorney, and they said, you need to put together $20,000. Your grandson is in custody. I couldn't remember where it was. She went and got two $10,000 withdrawals from banks in cash and went home, and a gentleman showed up in a car to pick up the money. The attorney said, I've contracted with a courier. He's a Yelp driver, not a Yelp driver, Uber driver, thank you. And he'll be picking up, here's the vehicle that he's going to be driving, and the person showed up and walked up onto their front porch. The husband was not really involved in the conversation until later on, basically walked him back to his car and said, you're going to need to leave now, drove quickly to the village hall, found a police officer, and was able to get the person down there to convince, because the woman was literally running down the street after the gentleman because she needed to get this money to him, thinking that her grandson needed the cash. The one thing that we don't often do is call the grandson to find out if this is legitimate, or have the husband call the grandson. She was so worked up about the fact that her grandson was in trouble, they never even tried to make that phone call. When the officer was there, he said, can we please confirm it was not your grandson? They called, and of course, grandson was just fine, wasn't out of the country, was actually in the town next door to us, up in Somerset, and basically said, I'm fine, what are you talking about? I was never in a crash. So, I mean, they're now getting more and more where they're gonna physically send somebody to pick it up. We've worked that case back a little bit. We're still working that case, in the fact that luckily the car, we were able to get the license plate on the vehicle. It did come back to a rental car company, and we're working with the rental car company to get information on who actually rented the vehicle. So again, that was just a few weeks ago. Sometimes these cases take a long time. We had to get search warrants to get data from the car company, but they're literally coming into our communities and sending people to pick up this money. He doubted it, but she was dead set on the fact that she needed to make sure that she gave this money over. So again, things are happening locally. One of the ways that we can get around, or you can get around this, is work out with your family that you have a family password. Or I heard somebody at the beginning talking about, well, what's your middle name? You can maybe tell me your first name, what's your middle name? Or, what's your date of birth? And they may not have some of that. They may, but most oftentimes they're not, or they're going to have gathered that information right from you. Like I said, this is your grandson. Oh, this is Tommy, and well, he's not going to know Tommy's middle name because you didn't give it to him. So maybe there's ways to kind of confirm that information. But if you do have a family password where you say, if I'm ever calling and asking you for money, this is what I'll tell you, because I want to make sure you know it's me. So that's one of the ways that we try to help people out with getting around this. The obituary scams. So how it works: scammer looks at recent obituaries. Now a lot of them are online. And then pulls names to contact. So, this person survived by, and all of a sudden they do some research and do some Googling to find out who the survived family members are. The scammer calls the family and falsely purports to be an employee of the funeral home or cemetery, which they just found from the obit. Again, if they can spoof the number, they spoof the number of O'Connell's funeral home. It looks like they're calling you to say that there's something going on. The scammers use that spoofing software. They tell the family that there's a problem with the credit card, or simply need additional money for the funeral arrangements, or to stay on schedule. And so they're going to start to get additional money. I know that typically funeral arrangements and services are expensive, so they may ask you for a pretty decent size of money. The family then gives the scammer, believing they are from the funeral home or the cemetery, that requested information. So obituaries oftentimes are out there online nowadays. It's not just in the paper, so it doesn't have to be somebody that's physically in your area. All right, the check overpayment scams. These are, and I've had this happen to me too. You get a check in the mail. It says, oh, this is your reimbursement or your rebate check. You sent too much money, or you won some money, and it'll be this amount of money. They may be personal checks, cashier's checks, or just a corporate looking check. And then the check is written for more than the asking. So it may have been that you may have been working online to sell an item. Maybe it's on eBay or on Facebook, through some of their different sites, and you agreed to sell somebody something for $500, and they send you a check for $1,500. And then they say, oh, I'm so sorry, I read that wrong. Can you just please send me the $1,000? You know what? Because of all of your efforts, just send me $700 back. You keep the extra couple of $100 just because it's a pain for you to deal with, and send me that $700 back. And then Rich will talk a little bit about some of the time frames on how it takes a check to get through their system, and how you end up being guilty, or not guilty, you end up being the victim of this particular person.
And that happens quite a bit. We see it where a check, they'll either deposit the check on the mobile app, or they'll bring it in, and we'll ask, where did you get the check from? What did you do? And either they were told to lie, tell us, it's from annuity or they cashed in some stock, and the check might not look right. It's coming from a company somewhere else, and we deposit that, and most times we'll put a hold on it for a few days just to make sure it clears. And by the time, if let's say we missed it, we didn't catch it, it got deposited, and of course now the scammer's asking you to, send that money back now, go get a cashier's check or go get a, get a gift card, and they take the cash out, and then in about 2 days, 3 days, the check comes back for a fraudulent check because that bank account was hacked. That business could have been hacked. They had to shut their account down, and they're of course sending out cashier's checks that are bad or corporate checks that are bad. And so the victim is left on the hook for the money that they took out to send the gift cards or send the wire. So we're always watching for them, but they do slip through the cracks once in a great while. There was a story with a younger person who got a check, and it was for Instagram. He was going to become a model on Instagram. And so they sent him a check, and right away we knew this check was not good. I mean, it didn't look good. We sent it off. Well, the place where it was drawn on, they didn't even know their account had been hacked. And it took over a month before we had to call the bank or the company and ask them, could you send that check back? We're waiting. We have a hold on it, and we know it's a scam, and it was a scam, but so there's always both sides. Sometimes the victim of the company doesn't know that it's a scam or that they've been hacked. So there's always fine moving parts, but.
And oftentimes the checks don't make sense.
Right.
This person was supposed to be working for Ulta Beauty Company, for example, but the check came from Smith's Concrete Company. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And so those are some of the things that we know to look for. They may have an excuse on the other end, for the scammers. But those are some of the red flags that we look for. And if we haven't seen it much, but people can be emailed a check, and it can be deposited that way too. So different. They think of everything.
They do. They come up with every weird way that, like I say, we're always on our toes trying to find what's new. What is this new item that they're coming up with? So,
very good. The auto warranty scam. You may get, I hear some people that have heard or seen this so far. So it's your final notice on your warranty is about to expire, and so that you need to reach out to them and extend that warranty. It's usually the robocall or a mailing, a little note card that you'll get in the mail. It's urgent. Of course, it's only available a short amount of time because they want you to make that decision quickly. And then, of course, once you order it, it really offers no actual coverage whatsoever. The charity scams or charity fraud, because they're nonprofits, a lot of times we feel a little bit more comfortable because they're not on the do not call list or they're not covered, so nonprofits can call you even if you've added your number to the do not call list. They say they support local fire and police services. I get these calls all the time, and not as a police officer, from people saying, I'm with the national police officers, whatever, and I say, well, I prefer to donate locally, or I usually do can you please mail me the information so I can review it? And while we really prefer to do it over the phone with your credit card or debit card, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. Can you mail it? And of course, yes, we'll mail something to you, and I've never, ever received anything. And a lot of times those are scams. And so, oftentimes I will tell people that, make sure that you know who you're donating to, because a lot of times those phone calls are just going to be scams, and they're just using somebody that they feel like you're going to trust, whether it's the fire union or the police union or the fraternal order of police, those types of things.
And they're very smooth talkers too.
Absolutely.
I couldn't get the one person off the phone that was to donate to the police. It was some national group, and every time I said no, I prefer to donate locally, he had come back for everything, and the smoothest talking I've ever had. I finally just had to hang up.
Yeah, most of the time they're not going to get angry with you. They're just going to keep being very calm, cool, collected. I remember one of the computer ones, it was, hi, this is so-and-so from Dell. Your computer is showing an error. And I said, I don't own a Dell. And he said, well, no, it's coming from your Dell. And so I said, okay, we're going to have fun with this. And so I said, what is the email address? You said I need to go to an email address to get you access to my, and then he got a little excited and he's like, oh, yep, absolutely, here it is. And he gave it to me. And at the end of it, I typed scam just so that it would to see. And sure enough, it popped up from Google that this is definitely a scam. And I said, sir, it doesn't seem to be working. Oh, you must not have typed it incorrectly. I said, well, I did. And at the end, I put scam. And he added some expletives and then hung up on me. It was fun for me for a little bit of time. But it's impossible to tell a real call from a fake call. So they do have charitynavigator.org is a website that you can go to either confirm that it is a legitimate charity or it's something that you can go to if you do want to donate. It's got some information on where you can do those donations. charitynavigator.org. Investment scams. So there's a whole bunch of different ones: binary options, cryptocurrency offerings, the Ponzi schemes, private placements, promissory notes, pump and dump schemes, precious metals and collectibles, social media and internet fraud. So the Division of Securities in the state of Wisconsin is a place that you can go if you feel like you have had any of these types of scams. We don't see a lot of those around here, with the exception of, like I said, some of the investment ones that we've been seeing. I don't know if you all are seeing anything specific on those.
Well, that would be where the cryptocurrency
Okay.
issues have come in.
Yep.
Is that, you send us 10,000,
The offerings.
and we will invest it in a cryptocurrency account for you to make double your money.
And they're starting to use wires more and more. So it's trying to find, does this wire make sense? We're kind of looking at it going, okay, this really doesn't seem like something you would do, but it's really hard to convince them it's not legit because of the riches that await.
All the promises.
Yes.
All right, so when we've talked a lot about the scams themselves. Here's some of the warning signs that we can look at that demand to wire the money, because like you mentioned, it's a little bit more difficult to determine whether or not it's legitimate. The demand to pay by a gift card or money cards, as we mentioned right at the beginning, gift cards are for gifts. They're not as payment. You don't pay your utilities. You don't pay your car bill with a gift card. Why would you pay someone that's a scammer? Need to verify your information. So, if there's anybody needs to verify it, if they're calling you, they probably have a lot of your information. And so, maybe it's can I get the name of your company again? And then you Google to see if there is a contact number so you can get around that. Anything that's urgent, immediate, or there's some sort of intimidation or threat. Some of these people, although he's mentioned some of them can be very, very smooth, some of them can be very angry. And they can try to make you feel less than and try to intimidate you to make that bad choice. Remember that if they tell you to keep it a secret, don't tell anyone. There's a reason, because they don't want you to tell anybody else that you were the victim. Unsolicited phone calls, those scam likelies that don't always pop up as scam likelies, because if I was talking to someone during the break about that, the block feature on your phone. If you get a call and you don't recognize it, you can block it. Literally, it'll take them 3 seconds to get a new number to be able to call you from a different number. So use it, but it may not be the end-all be-all when it comes to those. Government does not make phone calls. The IRS is not going to call you. The police department is not going to call you and tell you that you have an arrest warrant out for, we're probably going to show up at your door if you have an arrest warrant, not make that phone call to you. Payment to claim a prize. If it's a prize, you shouldn't have to be paying for it, especially up front. Need to click links to confirm your information. Never click on a link that's sent to you that you don't know or you didn't ask for. And those second and third payments required of, your first payment didn't work, or, I'm sorry, the paperwork didn't come through correctly. It does show that you owe us an additional second or third payment on some of these things. So if you hear or see these things, there are some warning signs of a scam. Ways to protect yourself. My wife yells at me all the time about the first one. I'm a cop and I know this. Don't answer the phone if you don't recognize the number. And I was like, well, but it might be. I don't want to miss it. They'll leave a voicemail and you can call them back. So if you don't recognize it, let it go to voicemail and see if you get that information. Because if they get you on the phone, as you mentioned, they're going to be pretty slick in how they talk to you, and they're going to be salespeople. No offense to the salespeople in the room, but they're definitely going to try to get you to make that bad choice. Contact your phone service provider and request scam call blocking. Like I said, a lot of them have it as a default setting on your phones, but you may want to check with T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T and see if that's something, so that if a call comes from a number that seems like a scam, it'll actually show scam likely. We have T-Mobile and it constantly pops up scam likely. And again, that's not a person. Apps built in, services to block scam calls on smartphones. There are a lot of settings on a lot of the smartphones where you can basically say, no calls will ring through unless it's in my contact list. Now, you have to be a little careful about that because if you don't have your doctor's number in there, or if the, like Health Partners calls from one general number, but if they're calling from, maybe a local office, and it'll still go to voicemail. It's not going to ring through on your phone. It'll never show up as coming through until you get that voicemail. I know my son has it set up where on his iPhone, if it comes through as private caller or no caller ID, it goes immediately to voicemail. Never rings on his phone, doesn't bother him when he's doing work or anything like that. So I never call him from my work phone. I always call him from my personal phone because my phone comes through as private or unknown number. But that also means that if the police department calls you from our cell numbers, it's going to go direct to voicemail. We're going to leave a voicemail and hope that you call us back if you're a victim or we're trying to get some information, but we understand that technology is out there nowadays, so it's not like we're going to be upset that you didn't answer our call. Never verify information over the phone when you were the receiver of the call. Never pay for anything over the phone with gift cards. A little bit of repetition because I want to make sure it sticks. Treat your personal information like cash because that's what they're going to get from you if they get your personal information is your cash. So there's a commonality there. Set up bank alerts. I don't know if you have any information on bank alerts through your company or
Yep, like
you've heard of.
if you do online banking, with our bank, you can set up text alerts, and you can set up for $1. So anything that comes through for $1, you can get a text right away. And anything that comes for over $1, I tested that, and when you have stuff coming in all the time, you get a text every time. But it's helpful because all of a sudden, if $300 comes out, you're like, well, where did that come from? Or a purchase was made, and it tells you an ATM purchase was made. So, if you don't bank with us, bank somewhere else. Just check and see, can you get text messages? Because it's a one way to help and see, is something coming out right away. Text alerts are very handy and very nice to help know if something's going on with your account.
And oftentimes, go ahead.
I strongly encourage our customers to put a password on your account, a verbal password. So if you or someone pretending to be you calls in, it's more a case of you've been an identity theft or someone's gotten into your computer. We don't know for sure how much information they got about you, but they could have everything we may ask to identify you. So our last defense is for you to put a password on that you have to give to us before we're going to release any information on your account. So I strongly encourage that.
Very good. And because she's not here like my mom, then she would write that on a sticky note and it'd be in a pile of all of her passwords. I gave her for Christmas the password book, so she'd have it all in one place, but we're still working. Still tough. And then you can freeze your credits, and so if it is such a thing that you run a credit report and you see that there's some interesting activity, you can work with, there are some companies that you can actually pay for to get some protections on your credit. The 3 credit bureaus do allow you to do some work with a PIN account so that if you call in to open up maybe you're going to go buy a car and you want to open or get a loan for that car, you actually have to provide a PIN in order for your credit to be run and to have those things, because we're seeing a lot of credit cards that are opened. The people don't know about it until 3 months later when they're all of a sudden defaulted on that credit card or that loan. Just had a gentleman call me on Monday that he was dealing with that. The name was wrong, but the address was right, and so he was worried. It turns out the company just put the wrong address on. So it wasn't a scam, but they could definitely do that where they open the card and use your information. And maybe it's only a $2,000 credit limit, but again, it's something that you're gonna have to then work through, and it's not fun. All right, credit union, one line of defense, financial institutions. Is this yours? I think this is yours. All right, perfect.
I can take over. So
Please.
Kind of added some slides to this, kind of saying the banks, credit unions, we're kind of one line of defense to help. Are we going to stop everything? No. We'd love to, but it's really tough. So when you go in and if you're going to withdraw a large amount of cash, I would hope that the bank will ask you, well, we're going to ask you questions about these types of transactions, and if we suspect possible fraud. So unusual large cash withdrawals, unusual suspicious wire request, raising your debit card limit frequently. We've been seeing that a lot where people call, because we keep our limits at a lower amount, but then if somebody keeps calling and saying, I need to raise it up, and we can see purchases for Cash App or anything like that, it just seems out of the norm for what you would spend money on. So we've come up with this, and some banks use this all the time. It's called the fraud indemnification agreement. It's a big word. And
Was laying on your chairs when you came in.
So I'll just read a couple, but we use this form as a tool to help protect our clients and the bank from potentially fraudulent activities. And this form is used for unusual or out of the ordinary requests like cash transactions when fraud or a scam is suspected. And so when somebody comes in, they want to take out a really large amount of cash that's not normal for what they do. We might ask, is the transaction, which you've heard, for gift cards, to deposit into an ATM or a Bitcoin machine, send funds via mail. And now the scary one with the Uber, Lyft person, the courier coming to your house, that's a scary one. I've never heard that before. And that just blows my mind that somebody would actually come to your house and grab the cash, or take the cash. I mean, that, to me, that scares me. Might ask, were you instructed by someone to keep this withdrawal a secret, which we keep hounding and talking about because this is what we see all the time. And you might be asked to provide, are you being asked to provide your bank account details or instructed to withdraw cash to prevent fraud? That's another one the banks are going through too, is where they suspect, or the insider, what do they call it, that the bank security officer is they're trying to catch an insider in the bank, so they're gonna use your account. And that's where the Bitcoin machine comes in, or they send out, get you to take your cash and give it to the courier, do something like that. And so, also, what banks and financial, Minnesota Department of Revenue, which also Wisconsin has, and I think, Mark, you have you're going to talk about the Wisconsin part. The Minnesota Department of Commerce partners with financial professionals to prevent fraud and exploitation. And this allows financial professionals to hold or delay a transaction or disbursement of funds to protect vulnerable adults and seniors for financial exploitation. So if we suspect that something is fraudulent, we have this where we can delay the transaction and hopefully stop, and then we'll get the Minnesota Department of Commerce or Wisconsin, and they'll take a look and they'll get in contact with you.
Your slide said Minnesota Department of Commerce. Does that apply to Wisconsin?
And that's, Mark's going to talk about that.
Wisconsin has almost, the language is almost identical. So I think they changed the name and adopted it here in Wisconsin. So, yeah.
So we have tools that, it is your money, but we like to help protect if we suspect that something just doesn't add up with this withdrawal. You've never come in and got more than a couple $100, and all of a sudden you're taking $10,000 in cash out. We might, we have these tools on hand to say, let's take a step back and look at this. We'll contact the state, and just because you're being told not to say anything, and it's very scary. And hopefully somebody from the state will help you see that this could be fraudulent. And it's a very tough out there.
Because oftentimes if you're not being honest with us, but we still have a gut feeling that it's just not right, we now have this protection that we still have the right to say, we're not going to do this for you today. And we can delay it. I think it's 15 days.
I think it's 15 days, yep.
It's a relatively new tool that we've started using, but it has been very helpful for us and for the customers that we have saved them a great deal of money by being able to use this tool.
So the making the report section here, and it's also true with the Wisconsin, if you believe a vulnerable adult or a senior, anyone age 65 or older is where the cutoff is for that, is a victim of financial exploitation, then you can file these reports, you can withhold that transaction. That is true in the state of Wisconsin, and I think it's in the best interest of the states and the federal government to not allow you to become a victim, because most of the monies that are going out, like I mentioned, are going overseas, whether it's to China, Western Africa, trying to think of the other hotbed. There's a number of kind of hotbed areas that are non-extradition countries and countries that kind of have protections. Those monies then are being used for terrorism and for other financial frauds, and to try to basically do bigger things to try to affect the world and the financial economy of the world. So it's in the best interest of the states and the governments to be able to help financial institutions to protect you and your money when somebody else is trying to scam you out of it.
And then kind of on banking tips, which I know Tammy just talked to a couple of them, but, and I always harp, but say, monitor your accounts frequently. If you use the phone app, your banking app, use the text feature, put those, consider, just looking at what's coming out of your account. because you're the first line. We're a good defense, but you're the first line of defense to really say, oh, this is not my transaction. And then we can help look at it and see. Do not give account information over the phone. And like Tammy had said earlier, consider placing a verbal password on your account. Usually if somebody has given out their, we kind of require that if somebody they're on the phone with a Microsoft scammer and they give out their account information, we'll require a password going forward if we get a new account. And then one red flag we always say is do not put any checks you've written in your mailbox. Do not put the red flag up. That's just a scammer's warning because they'll come by, they'll come take that check, they'll wash it, and sometimes they'll come right to the bank and cash it. You might have written the check for $100, but they'll try a couple thousand. And they do a good job of washing the check, or they'll change it, or they'll keep it the same that, oh, you didn't even notice that, but somebody else got the funds. So if you've ever had that happen, it does happen.
And one of the,
I just had a guy stealing my mail in the middle of the day.
Yep.
A foreigner. And I foolishly went out and said, what are you doing? Well, there happened to be a big black guy sitting right there that got out of his car. Yeah, I was protected, but he said, these are all my mailboxes. He was just bold as ever.
Wow.
and one of the ways you can try to avoid some of the check washing is to use gel pens. Because the gel pen, it will wash the entire check off, where ballpoint pens, oftentimes they can pick and choose what they use the chemicals to wash off, and so they can leave the name of the pay, or they can change the name of the payee, and then they can change small little things, where if you use a gel pen, and there was actually an investigator at the last presentation that we did that brought that up, that he had learned this through one of his contacts. So a gel pen versus a ballpoint pen. A lot of people don't use checks for paying for anything anymore. There are still people that do, but to his point, go to a mailbox drop off instead of on your personal mailbox, because it's very easy for someone at 2:30 in the morning to walk by and just start pulling doors. We've had many cases over the years where people from the Twin Cities will come over and just start hitting mailboxes around town, and they're out of town well before we even hear about it, and then it takes quite a bit of work to chase them down. But because checks are becoming less and less frequent, we don't see it as much, but it's still something that happens.
It still happens all the time. We recommend on your checks, don't use your full name on the check, put your first initial and last name. Never put your social security number on your check, and I don't think any bank would do that. Phone number and driver's license, just things to keep off of your printed checks.
And people used to do this because they knew that at the bank they were going to ask you for this information, and so it's easier for you just to circle it, and you're just trying to help everybody out, right? Well, it's not just the bank you're helping.
Right. And sometimes we offer, consider having new check orders sent to the bank, because all of a sudden the check order is laying in your mailbox, and if somebody's walking by, they can take those checks, and all of a sudden you're like, well, it's been a couple weeks, I haven't seen that check order come through. And the fraudster might wait a little bit and then start writing checks on the account, and then it comes through in waves. And as we age, we consider having a duplicate statement sent to a trusted person as a second set of eyes on the account. Just because all of a sudden, if you're doing lots of Cash App withdrawals or any type of banking that you wouldn't do, it's always good to have a second set of eyes looking at that. And also, Tammy, have a second trusted person as a co-owner on accounts. That way, in case of an emergency, they can continue to pay bills, and power of attorney, because you want a co-owner, because power of attorney ceases at death. We always recommend limiting the use of a debit card online. Some people will make a purchase where they sign up for $1 free trial, and all of a sudden there's a little fine print that you click the little box that says, sure, sign me up, and $200 or $300 comes out right after that. And there's not a lot we can do to help, because that's not truly a fraudulent transaction. So we always say debit cards are meant for around town. Use it at the grocery store or the gas station. And if you're ever in doubt about a situation, contact your financial institution. We can help guide you. If you're just ever leery about a transaction, we can look at it, and we might not know 100%, but we can definitely try to help.
All right. If you are the victim of a scam, and this is where I talked about, a lot of times people are very embarrassed They won't tell family. They have a very, very difficult time contacting anybody else. But don't be ashamed because you're a victim. They knew what to do to try to con you out of your money, and so nothing to be ashamed of. Let's come in and talk about it because we might be able to save somebody else from the same scam. Report it to law enforcement. Notify your financial institution because they can put holds on your accounts, they can change your account numbers, they can definitely work with you to get all that taken care of. And then the Wisconsin Bureau of Consumer Protection does have a scam reporting website that you can go to, again, to try to help us build a database of where these scams are coming from to hopefully be able to get some prosecution and to stop these people.